what is going on with the crypto market and what can we do about it? I'm the Gaussian Snick, and this is Crypto Simulation Theory. Please be sure to join my free Telegram group, the Snick Pit, for daily chart analyses, market updates, and so much more. Link is in the video description below. In my last Bitcoin update video that I did a few days ago, I analyzed Bitcoin on larger time frames, like the weekly and 2-week. I want to look at it on a smaller time frame to get an idea of what we might expect. And right now, it appears that Bitcoin is locked in a bearish pennant. You can see the bear flag right here and the pennant forming. And what I think is quite likely is that Q3 is going to be a red quarter. I think choppy at best, but most likely red. And if I had to extend this out to September by narrowing the time range, I can give you kind of an idea of what I anticipate to happen. So I think at some point, this flag is going to break, and we're going to break to the downside. Now, I don't know if we'll get down to 50K right away. There is certainly some support at 53K, so maybe we get to 53K. That would be kind of a conservative estimate. That could be this month. It doesn't necessarily have to be right away. We could bounce around in the bear flag for a little longer. And then maybe, especially as we head into August, I expect us to bounce. In August, I think August, there's a good chance it'll be a green month. And who knows, maybe we could come up and test some of these higher levels as we head into September. But I think once those rate cuts hit, which I am fully anticipating will happen, I think we head down into the red zone and maybe bottom somewhere around 46 to 48K. I have my red zone target at, September. Sorry guys, this is always so hard to draw, but maybe if I could extend this here to something like that, okay? So I think there will be some kind of really sharp drop in September into rate cuts that will send us down and complete the downward spiral that Bitcoin has been in, or is a very massive bear trap. And another possibility is that we hit 50K, bounce off that level, and maybe we don't come up as high. I still think August is likely to be a green month. I don't know. I just think after two pretty vicious red months, I think we're due for a green reversal month, but I don't think it's going to be sustained as we head into September. I do anticipate that this will break down in September, close to rate cuts. I think that's scheduled around the 18th. So let's just say, that we would have a pretty quick flush out. I think it will be very quick, and we'll make our way down to here and probably bounce in a V-shaped recovery coming out. So I think coming out of this trap, we would see the market start to recover in a more sustainable way. So that's kind of my thoughts on using a lower time frame. I think this bear flag will break to the downside, and I think it'll be kind of choppy during that time. And if you go to the CME Fed Watch, you can kind of see how this might play out. The market expects interest rates to be held steady on the July 31st Fed meeting, but there is almost unanimous agreement. I mean, we have 70% of people, market participants now, or CME group participants now, saying that interest rates are going to experience their first cut in September. There's 51.1% confidence that this would happen in November, but let's just do 1 month at a time. We're pretty much in agreement that July most likely is higher for longer, and then September is where we would really be expecting to see a cut because we're heading into elections just 2 months away. And Claudia Sahm has even been kind of on record. She's a famous economist known for the Sahm rule, that the Fed needs to take some action and cut interest rates sooner rather than later. So I do think we will see a cut in September, and that is traditionally bearish for the markets initially because it signals something is wrong, and that usually flushes out traditional markets, and I'm sure it will flush out crypto as well, sending us into this red zone. And I've had this red zone here for a really long time. If you go back to some of my earlier videos or go back to some of my charts on Twitter or Telegram, you'll see that I have been talking about this 45 to 50K range for a long time. And I do expect us to hit it. I think we will. And I think this is where we will bounce and start the next leg of the bull market. And I think that Bitcoin dominance, which I'll get to in a minute, should top sometime between late September to probably the end of the year, where Bitcoin kind of tries to find its footing again, but more on that later. But yeah, on the 4-hour time frame, it looks like we are just kind of traversing a bear flag or a bearish pennant, and my full expectation again is that will break to the downside. So that sort of brings up the question that if Bitcoin's going to break down, this is a massive bear trap right before a gigantic bull run begins and taking Bitcoin price well over 100K, I think then what can we expect in the meantime with Ethereum, altcoins, and everything else? So I do want to address that and talk about Bitcoin dominance and a few other things so we can kind of get a picture of what we might see, especially if things play out the way they have before. And it's not really about things having to play out according to some ritual. It's just more about things playing out according to the risk curve. So you might notice right now like that the S&P has been doing quite well, although it did have a little bit of a drawdown in the past 4 hours. If you look at the S&P on a weekly time frame, you can see, and let me turn off one of my indicators. You can see that it has been doing really well, just putting in all-time high after all-time high. And it's like, okay, well, why is the S&P doing so well and Bitcoin isn't? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Well, we've seen periods like this in the past. So this happened in 2019 as well. There was a period where the S&P was going up, but Bitcoin was going down or just not doing a whole lot. So we do see times where the S&P does decouple from Bitcoin. It's not entirely unusual. So I think what we might see is some of this money find its way into Bitcoin maybe in August, and that might prop the market up a little bit, but I think ultimately both markets are going to be heading down as we go into September. September is generally not a good month for traditional markets and by association crypto. And so the idea behind the decoupling may just simply have to do with the fact that number one, these don't have to be correlated positively all the time, and number two, the S&P is the least risky asset right now out there, like the stock market in general. If you have to compare it to like crypto, right? Like there's nothing in crypto that is less risky than investing in the stock market. So most of the market during these kind of times of high interest rates and a little bit of uncertainty, it's going to find itself into the stock market and not so much into the higher risk assets. And the reason why you get that rotation of capital the way that you do is, again, it's just a matter of liquidity and finding its way from the lowest risk all the way to the highest risk. Of course, the highest risk are the altcoins. So we have Bitcoin and Ethereum, Ethereum being more risky than Bitcoin. And then we have large caps being less, more risky than Ethereum, but less risky than mid and small caps. Then, so that's sort of how the crypto space works. And I think it will continue to work that way as long as it is a highly risky space. So Bitcoin dominance on the 4 hour is really nothing more than sideways chop. Bitcoin is currently stuck in a bear flag. So I anticipate this pattern to kind of hold and consolidate until Bitcoin breaks out of the bear flag. And if Bitcoin breaks out of the bear flag to the downside, I anticipate us to see dominance hit some higher levels. So I'm expecting as we get into, the latter part of July that dominance will go up. Maybe not all the way to a new high, but if we pull out the path tool, maybe what we see is in August, dominance takes a little bit of a breather. I don't know that it has to go down much, but maybe just kind of like choppy. Some kind of choppy behavior kind of continuing this rectangle that's in. And then I think once Fed rate cuts come, you could really see a nice breakout. And you could see potentially that it taps this yellow line or even goes above it in a final blow off top, potentially scenario. And, maybe it comes down a little bit, but then it goes up again. The thing is, dominance is not necessarily done here because let's say that this is like the local bottom for Bitcoin in the bear trap, and now the market's reversing course. You would anticipate the dominance would still have further upside in it, but of course it could draw back a little bit first and then kind of pump again. Then I don't know, maybe put in a lower high. I don't think a higher high is necessarily the most likely case. Maybe a lower high and then kind of fall down from there. Again, ignore the timelines on here. I'm on the 4 hour time frame, but sometime into the end of the year, I think we could see dominance truly collapse. But I think that dominance will probably peak, if it hasn't already, when the Fed cuts rates. And I think you'll see that on a Bitcoin drop to the red zone target at 45 to 50K, maybe followed by a pullback in dominance as Bitcoin starts to recover. And then maybe as Bitcoin starts to move towards a new all-time high, you see another increase in dominance. And then once altcoin season officially starts, I think you'll see dominance really start to take a back seat. This is the altcoin season index. You can see it is very much not altcoin season. Carving out some kind of bottom here, I think it could come back down into Bitcoin season. That would be my expectation. And just kind of chop around maybe in this range for a little while before I think we're going to see probably a really nasty drop deep into Bitcoin season on rate cuts. And then I think we'll start to see some upward movement as we head towards altcoin season. I don't think altcoin season necessarily becomes obvious right away, like once Bitcoin does, hit some kind of major bottom, I think altcoin season becomes more obvious once Bitcoin hits a new major top and then starts to chop around, and people take their profits from Bitcoin and start to rotate them into Ethereum and the remaining altcoin market. That's more of what I'm expecting. So I don't think we're going to be heading up to altcoin season in September, but I think it's reasonable to expect that altcoin season could begin sometime between the end of September and maybe December, January timeframe. I know it's a really wide range of time, but we just don't know how long it's going to take for Bitcoin to get back on its feet and head back up to a new all-time high. I don't show this often, but this is Bitcoin season, altcoin season on a monthly time frame. It's kind of interesting. We're at 37, so we're actually not in the depths of Bitcoin month. And this formation here actually looks like it could be kind of bullish, although it doesn't have to be. It could come back down, right? So we are at slightly higher levels on a monthly time frame, compared to earlier parts of 2024, right? So this is supposed to be on a monthly time frame. Anyways, it's not altcoin month, so it is very much neutral, but kind of leaning more towards Bitcoin, if I had to say. And if you look at year, it's not altcoin year, so we're kind of like in the lower third of this chart. So we have a little ways to go, certainly, before we make our ways up to these really major altcoin season milestones. Of course, this is during the 2021 season, so we've been down here for a while and forming a nice little bull. So I think it is reasonable to anticipate that by late 2024, early 2025, we could be starting to work our way up into an altcoin year. So ETH Bitcoin failed to put in a higher high, as you can see here, even though it did put in a higher low relative to this one here. Much of ETH USD has retraced to where it was before this massive pump. This is ETH Bitcoin again on the 4 hour, but we're putting in lower highs, and it looks like you could argue this is somewhat of a double bottom, but it looks like we're about to head lower for ETH Bitcoin. The 0.5 level is certainly a fierce level of support and resistance, but I just don't think we're done yet. I don't think this trip down to the sub 0.5 level is over with. I still contend that you've got a red zone for ETH Bitcoin. Oh, I already have it drawn on here, so perfect. Down here between 0.03 and 0.04, because I have to think that if Bitcoin has a massive dump heading into rate cuts, and even another dump kind of maybe even coming this month, I think in July we could see another leg down. I have a hard time seeing us have downward price action in August, though, if that happens, but we certainly could see another leg down, and maybe ETH Bitcoin, I don't know exactly how this would play out, but maybe it kind of comes back to here, has a little bit of a bounce, puts in another lower high, and I think tags this red zone and finally forms some kind of bottoming process. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the opportunities of a lifetime open up for things like Ethereum and other altcoins. If you've been sitting on the sidelines with cash and you're taking that risk, certainly you could see some pretty major opportunities open up if ETH Bitcoin finds its way to 0.03 to 0.04, which I think is quite likely. So this is total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin to give you sort of an idea of the relative strength of the top altcoins minus the stablecoin market divided by Bitcoin. So it's all about how altcoins perform against Bitcoin. And what you'll notice, this is the 18-hour chart, is that we're in some kind of wedge. And it looks quite bullish. Like if you kind of look at it long term. I don't really know exactly where. This is probably not the best place to draw these touch points. Probably go up a little bit higher, or you could go even higher than that if you wanted to include these. But you could say that we're in some kind of wedge, some kind of consolidating wedge. And I think it is quite likely that we still have some downside left in this wedge. But what I like is that, these wedges have a way of breaking to the upside very dramatically. So if, you're looking at the altcoin market as a whole, maybe we kind of come down a little bit. Again, I probably should extend these lines. Let me do that real quick on the wedge. So keep forgetting what kind of time frame I'm in here. I'm in a 18-hour time frame, and also missing some chart data. We can ignore that. It's probably a glitch, but who cares? So maybe we can come down here into the end of July and then see a bounce into August. Maybe we touch the top of this trend line. Everybody thinks, oh, altcoin season starting. Maybe we can get above it just to fake out and kind of like mess around here a little bit and then come down into rate cuts, and maybe we put in a new bottom even underneath. We've been maybe underneath this. You know, if I wanted to extend the lower trend line down, I could certainly do that. And then from there, maybe we start to work our way back up. So I think that this falling wedge will probably remain intact for the next couple months, but that we should break out of it sooner rather than later. Now, for the highest time frame I've used in this video so far, the weekly time frame, this is others dominance, which is the dominance of the altcoin market minus the top 10. And it is forming an interesting pattern. It's one of the only charts that looks like it could break bullish, and I don't really think that it will be sustained if it happens just because of rate cuts. But if you look at this chart, and you know, it is forming a fairly convincing head and shoulders inverse pattern, or upside down head and shoulders, which is very bullish. This looks like a potential head, and again, this is on the weekly time frame, so you got to be take this more seriously on the higher time frame. Here's a shoulder. I guess that'd be your right shoulder if you're upside down perspective, your left shoulder from an upside down perspective. If this starts to move up, it will complete the head and shoulders pattern, which is quite bullish. But I just really have a hard time seeing how the heck altcoins are going to run if there's no liquidity for them to run with. So I can only think that maybe Bitcoin gets that nice recovery at some point. I mean, it could already be happening. The bear flag could be invalidated. I don't think it will be, but you know, we could see maybe a little drop by others dominance into the end of July, and then in August maybe others dominance gets a really nice bounce to complete the inverse head and shoulders, but possibly that bounce is invalidated by rate cuts, right? You know, I'm sounding so deterministic about this, and maybe that's a mistake, right? But then, you know, from there maybe we could, you know, or maybe it even comes all the way down here. I'm not sure, but I just don't know. I have a hard time seeing how an inverse head and shoulders could actually play out in real life if we don't have those rate cuts. Like, where's the liquidity coming from? Where is all that money coming from for the altcoin market? Is it Mt. Gox? Mt. Gox could definitely be influential, but I'm not really seeing that take place in the market right now, where it's influencing the market in a good way. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments about where you think altcoin liquidity could come from before rate cuts happen, because I just honestly I don't see it. So in summary, nothing's really changed that much. Bitcoin is in a bear flag that is likely to break to the downside. I think July is probably going to be a red month. If it isn't a red month, then I would be very surprised that if August didn't turn red. But my expectation is that July will be a red month, August will be a green month, and September will be a red month. And then I think, if I had to guess, October, November, and December will probably be mostly green months for the crypto market. You know, these are predictions based on what I'm seeing right now. Take them with a grain of salt. On others' dominance, I am very suspicious of this inverse head and shoulders pattern actually forming. But if it does, we'll certainly keep an eye on that. I don't know where altcoin strength would come from. I don't think Ethereum has bottomed against Bitcoin. I think it's quite unlikely that it's happened, but I think it is getting close to doing that. And yeah, in general, I think just the best way to navigate this market, and of course, nothing I tell you on this channel is intended to be financial advice, including this. The best way that I would navigate this market, if I wanted to be conservative, is just have a really decent stack of Bitcoin, have like some Ethereum, some altcoins, and a cash stack or stablecoin stack to take advantage of some lifetime opportunities that could roll around in the next couple months. I mean, you're already seeing altcoins pretty depressed, but they could get depressed even more, not only against their USD pairs, but also against their Bitcoin and ETH pairs. So just be on the lookout for those kind of opportunities to come your way relatively soon. So thank you for joining me today in the crypto simulation. I am the Gaussian Snake, and I'd love to have you join my Telegram group, the Snake Pit. Link is in the video description. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, share this video with others to get the word out, and I will see you again next time.